Welcome to the Kawarthas Small Business Podcast, where we believe the Kawarthas can be the most thriving region in Canada for small businesses. So we created a podcast where we have million-dollar conversations that help small business owners thrive. I'm Brian Rump from Profit Coach.
And I'm Matt Geraghty of Matt G Digital.
And we are recording from the Thrive Podcast Studio at Thrive Co-working Community in downtown Lindsay, Ontario at 18 Kent Street West. And with us today, we have Kim Underwood from Calm Solutions. Kim is a listener who reached out to us, and we were like, why not just have you right on the podcast? So welcome, Kim.
Thank you very much for having me today.
Tell us about your business.
So Calm Solutions is a organizing and decluttering company where we try and help people live with less, and in their state of need, nearing a move or a transition, we try and declutter and downsize them with all of the things that they've collected for years, like usually. So yeah, that's us, and I'm really happy to be here.
Oh, that's awesome. We're so happy to have you. And your business is based out of Sunderland.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to, perfect way to note, we're called Kawarthas. I would consider Sunderland the greater Kawartha area. We are for small businesses everywhere.
Yeah.
And even, I think Brock might not consider yourselves Kawarthas. The federal and provincial riding maps consider us all the same community. So
that's right.
I just think it's awesome to have you here with us, and looking forward to learning more about you and your business.
Thank you. Yeah, we have started the company, and we served a lot of clients in Finland the first couple of years that we started. So we had Finland, we've done Lindsay, Peterborough, we've gone as far as Stouffville, Markham, and way down into the city, so Scarborough Bluffs area.
Yeah, so tell me, I like the concept, and before we recorded, you said a few things that I thought were interesting, but when do people call you, and what do you do?
So when people call it, well, we get kind of a twofold of when people call us. So they're either right in the midst of a move and they need to declutter their house quickly for the sale. So they have all of these items and the family doesn't quite know where to take it or put it. Or they call because someone has passed on or moved into long-term care and retirement, and they have a house full of goods and it takes 80 to 100 hours to clear that out, or so they think. We have a team and we're very strategic on how we do it. I have 3 casual kind of employees. Flying under the radar on that one right now. But usually I will go in first and talk to them and really discuss what are they for sure keeps. So if there's family heirlooms, birth certificates, pictures hanging on the wall that they really want to keep, then we put those aside, and then the team gets to work on saleable goods. So sometimes there's good secondhand goods such as tables, furniture, armoires. There's always those type of items. And then from there, it goes down to donations. So we have been in touch with North House in Uxbridge, and we're actually trying to get in touch with Cannington. The Nourish and Develop Foundation is doing a secondhand kind of thing.
Okay.
And so we're trying to get on with them to donate there as well, because as you know, the donation centers are getting quite full. We always see them turning people away and stuff. So my hope is to get on with places like that are actually in need of the items, and then the items could then transfer with the clients as they move out of transitional housing and or need the goods. So then, and finally, we get to the recycling, scrap metal, which we do as well, and then from there, finally trash. So the last home that we completely emptied for our client, we ended up only using a 10-yard bin, which of course is another way that we help another small business within the area. So we use their bins, and we ended up only using a quarter of their bin for trash. So we were able to totally distribute all of the items. So that's when we downsize a client. When we're decluttering or moving in or organizing, it's usually for slightly younger people who are settled in their home but maybe have some disorganization. And the way that I fell into that is just I'm an organized mom of 2, and people just tended to call and be like, can you come help me organize my pantry cupboards or kitchen or toy room? I think with my training, I was a nurse for 20 years. I think with my training, I have really really done well with the older population. That's where my long-term care is where I spent a lot of my nursing career. So I've really been able to help those clients. So.
Are you mostly trying to focus on people that are moving, or if like I just wanted you to organize my basement, would you do that?
Yeah, so I do really love doing the organizing. I think with the team building, I would really like to build out my team a little bit better. I have another young mom who really loves labeling.
Yeah.
She loves to label, she loves to do camp things, she loves all of those things. So for kitchen type things, she's really my go-to person. For a basement or a garage though, yeah, I love just seeing the transformation because people often say to me, oh my God, this is going to take me all weekend. And I'm like, oh, this is going to take us 4 hours. So it's a very quick turnaround. And I like to see people, especially people with families, I like to see them have their time back. Like, I really enjoy the time with my own children and my own family. We love bike riding. We love going outside. We love our cabin. So I don't want to spend every nice weekend inside my basement.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. You've answered so many of my questions already. Like,
This reminds me of a throwback to the show Clean Sweep. Was that your original motivation back? That's probably getting close to 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's funny. The original motivation for it was because we had my grandparents had a big farm. They have 5 children and 1 adopted daughter. So I have 6 aunts and uncles plus multiple family members there, and it became very overwhelming for the estate on what was going to happen and how it was going to be distributed. And I think I just came in with that clear picture of this is what we need and this is how we need to do it, and that's just how So I did not do that estate alone. I actually had like my mom, she helped as well, and so did my dad. My dad is I call him the original salvager. My dad will salvage anything, like to try and keep it. He's the original environmentalist. He does not want anything to go to the junk. So if he can salvage stuff and send it to its appropriate place. So I think I learned very early on how to do that, and in our own home we try and do that, and our kids try and do that. My son currently is 14 years old and wants to move to Australia with nothing. He literally wants to live on a beach with a surfboard and maybe a little truck, and that's how he wants to live. But yes, Clean Sweep was one of those things that I do love. Like I love that. I love seeing the looks on people's face. Like the overwhelm, I would say that in all of our comments back from clients, it's that you took me from overwhelmed to calm in no time at all. And that's what I love. Like that's my truth. That's where I shine. Like I love that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think there's a couple things. I read an article a few months ago that was talking about sort of the great problem with stuff, because we have a generation who are now passing away or moving into long-term care who grew up with like probably nothing, but they've accumulated so much. They don't like to get rid of it all. They have sentimental value, but their children don't want it because their children were able to build their own lives and do everything. So, you end up with this big farmhouse full of stuff. Everyone's kind of a bit attached to it all, but no one has room for any of it. Whereas the previous generation, it might have been like, even when I was a kid, I remember my grandmother being like, people will inherit. She has like a little cupboard with like 8 things in it that, for different people. And it's like, oh, you'll inherit this. And some are like, oh, you'll inherit my furniture. Or Matt's going to laugh because I know his family's gone through like some like curio cabinets. And stuff. And it's like, here's all this stuff. It's like, oh, we're moving, so here's all these like things that are yours now. And it's like, it's great, but like, you don't want it, you don't have room for it, you don't want it to just go in the landfill pile necessarily. But it's becoming a huge trend because, as you said, all the like most of the thrift stores that exist are full, and not everyone's shopping from thrift stores. It's a certain market, but you have all this stuff that's good that shouldn't be in landfills. But like, what do you do with it?
So this is where there's like 2 parts to that, right? So yes, we had the grandparents as well that had stuff set for people and the little masking tape names on it. And I did learn from, so I had 2 sets of grandparents. I was looking them up, and my garage to clear out that farmhouse, that home, and the margarine containers were stacked so high. I was like, oh my God, I'm 5 feet tall and these are way taller than me. And I just couldn't even believe it. But then you get to the bottom one, which has probably been saved for 30 years, and it crumbles in your hand. And my thought is, what a waste, because that could have been useful to someone in its time, but now it's useful to no one and has to be tossed. So with a lot of things, I try and do that. I try and find refurbishers. We actually work with 2 ladies. And I'm sure that they like branch out and send the files on to other people, but currently we work with 2, out of Port Perry and one out on Highway 48, closer to Lake 7. And they take any antique kind of things or anything that they could paint possibly, so like that orangey pine furniture that everybody had, usually gets painted out and like maybe modernized slightly. And then there's also one lady who searches for 1970s type, mid-century modern type things, so if you come across anything like that. But there are people willing to pay for those goods. So where people should know is that sometimes if your family doesn't want it, it's okay. It's still not going to go to the landfill. We're just going to find a more appropriate place for it. We get calls all the time. I have a running list. So I have like a guy who has said to me, can you get me anything for my man cave? And I'm like, I'd love to do that. Just tell me what the man cave is. Like, what does it look like? Like signs or whatever. But we do pass on to them. So it's good to have this running list of what people are kind of looking for. But the overwhelming factor is that I heard a study the other day that there is more storage units in use in the United States than Starbucks and McDonald's combined.
Ooh,
and I'm just,
Storage is a huge
business.
Holy.
Huge. And like then I go to a storage locker with like a little old lady the other day, and she's a lovely lady, but hasn't touched the boxes in here in 8 years. And now they just rotted away, right? Like, so although they're temperature controlled, but the stuff is, it has that scent. And now, so it's the waste that I really am trying to help curb. My long-term goal, if I could go into that, is that I would love to see Brock Township, as well as, I know that the city has, like Lindsay, you have the hotel, but Brock Township, we have no place for intermittent housing and or like a hotel, air quotes kind of thing, right? So I would love to see sea cans being used with only secondhand goods in them, so that people can actually see how you can live small, easy,
cool.
and like really use the second, because we get good secondhand goods. Like, we're not donating, nor are we suggesting that somebody use something that's moldy or going to cause anything to damage to their home. But we get really good secondhand goods, and sometimes my clients are more like, I just don't want to see it go to the landfill. Like, so they will either like take it when they shouldn't, or then you get kids, and I hate seeing the kids of one of my clients take something that they really don't want. My grandmother asked me years ago, do you want this Royal Dalton? And I responded, no, because we were not allowed to use another word. I was like, no, I am not taking the Royal Dalton. But what I did take is a little plate, and I use that plate. That plate is not dishwasher friendly. It is like silver lined, whatever. And I use that plate religiously every day to hold my soap. So every day I do the dishes, I see my grandma. Yeah. So I love that people can use goods as opposed to waste.
Why do people not want to go to the landfill?
I think just like there is that environmental factor, but I also think that there's that attachment factor that we were discussing.
Oh, I think I don't know if I shared it on the podcast, but I have 2. One is my grandmother, and I remember which she went into a nursing home. My sister had like a grandma's yard sale. And I remember sitting and looking at my grandmother in this tiny apartment. Her entire life was just in a pile on her driveway. And like, I was like, most of the stuff wasn't sellable because she had the same, like, the aluminum pots from like the 40s or whatever were all there. And then my uncle passed away, and he was a single guy with not really a lot of stuff. But I remember going to like in Belleville, instead of a dump, it was like a waste transfer warehouse, and I'm like standing there throwing his life on a pile, and you're just like, I would rather someone use it. And we had got lucky; the stuff that actually went was not usable, but like we had put a bunch of stuff up for free, and like someone came and got something, and you just had like a newborn, and was like, oh, this like
this ugly chair was like a thing they were gonna like
Reading.
just use with the baby and throw a blanket on it because it was like a leather one where like the stuff had flaked off, so it looked ugly, but it was fine. But just stuff like that, where it's like, oh, it'd be nice to not just throw it out or like feel like you're throwing someone's entire life somewhere. So it'd be great to have somebody to come and like, just arrange for it to get used.
Yeah, because there is those companies and they are popping up, and we get asked all the time, do we use them? And I don't want to say the names, but we don't use the 1-800 numbers because I feel like they're just a little bit big, and I try and be a little bit more personable. And I think, again, that's my training as a nurse. I really try to be thoughtful in telling people there's a fine line. I don't ever go in. Also, I should mention that the second part of your question was, why don't they want it thrown out? And sometimes I get the response of, it's worth something. Like, it's worth something. And that one is hard.
Sounds like my mother.
It's hard.
My mom wouldn't let me get rid of. We had this like electric typewriter in our house. I was helping get rid of stuff, and she's like, well, that costs money. And I was like, yeah, it was great in 1995 when we bought it so that I didn't have to handwrite essays. But within a few years, everyone had a computer, and like by the time it was 2010, literally nobody wants like the typewriter with the screen on it anymore. Like, you gotta get rid of it.
It's probably my hardest question, and it's probably my hardest part of my job. I say that quite often to all the every person that comes with me is like, as soon as they bring up the cost factor, they walk away with their eyes covered because they just can't tell somebody that their little Dalton isn't worth anything anymore. And there will always be those people who wish to take it to an antique market. It's just, I do try and find appropriate places. So when I call the antiques and they say, no, we're not interested, that's your answer. And it's a really tough, but they do get there eventually because I think there's a realization for the clients as well that they can't take it. So your option is that your children put it in their basement or we can get rid of it. So it has to be. But I think sometimes when you're calling those larger companies with those dumping kind of trucks, you are watching, and I try very hard not to.
It's like someone smashing your Royal Daltons in front of you. Or like,
we don't.
It just takes the like. It's just a big sting thing, right? Because there was that time where, again, the generation, they were like things that no one had, like a nice thing that sat in the curio cabinet. And suddenly everyone could have a curio cabinet, whereas before it was only sort of the rich people who had it. So then it's like you get these things, or like I joke, my parents bought me these like Bradford Exchange baseball plates that they think are worth huge amount of money, and like I was like pretty young, I'm like I didn't even know about them, and they're still sitting in like boxes. But it's like if I met a kid who actually wanted them, I would give them to them right away. But for now, it's like, well, some days I'm just going to throw those on the dump pile,
right?
Like,
which is what I don't want to see happen, right? Like I feel like maybe there is a kid out there that needs or wants that baseball plate, and even if he just wants one in his room. And that's where I would love to work with other companies who really love that secondhand world as well. Because I think in secondhand, there's been so much of there's such a stigmatism around it. Like,
well, people think it's like hoarders, or you're getting something that's like, it's still good, but you don't really want to use it. Whereas, like, we call it our wedding gift cupboard, because you know, the weekend we got married, like, I know exactly what was on sale at Canadian Tire because we got 8 of them. And it's like, you slowly either re-gift them or give them away, or you use some, but it's like, it's all good stuff. It's just like, it's secondhand. There's nothing at all wrong with it.
But there isn't anything wrong with secondhand. And that's where I would like those seed cans like that would be my dream. Because I think that if people could just see it, and we are coming back in, like everything comes back around, right? Like macrame has come back around, even though they say that it was from the 70s, but it's come back around. So like if you mix well-used goods with new goods with handmade goods, it's kind of like your all-inclusive space, right? So I think that there's a huge opportunity there. I also really love when you see the look on, and we're never really, I don't think, supposed to see the clients of but sometimes like we have it on the truck and trailer, so we deliver. And when we do deliver to some of the clients, the look on the people's faces of, I can't even, you don't want anything for this, thank you so much. Like, we really needed this. And I just think that if you can give somebody a hand up, like, yes, I believe in karma, but that's not why I do it. I think if you can give somebody a hand up, I get to go back to my client and see the look on now. And they're not always old people, but like I get to go back and say to a person, you were able to help a family with that single bed. Like, and the look on their faces, so it's just smiles all around, right? And I don't think that there's enough of that. I think it's too stigmatized still, and I'd like to make it just free flowing. Like, I'd like it just to be.
Yeah, that's really interesting how, the stores don't always cover that. Or I think about we gave away like a single bed set. We used to have an exchange student, and then it was, my wife's a teacher, so someone at school knew of like somebody who had like a fire, and they were like a single mom who had lost everything. And it's like they're not in a position to go to a thrift store and like rebuy all that things. So to have that person who's kind of organizing or rounding up stuff, and we were able to like get the kid a bed to sleep in, is like the thing that you prefer to do when you can. And I think there's always a need for it.
It's just finding, it's that connection factor, right? Which I find is what we're probably lacking a little. Is I'm pretty well connected, but I don't seem to be connected to the most appropriate people for some of those really great secondhand goods. And I think that I would really love to work with, like, say, a women's shelter or a men's shelter, like, no discrimination. Like, I don't care who you are. If you're in need, I would really like we have, like, the homeless population is ever expanding, right? And so I feel like if they need intermittent housing, I don't quite know how that works, and I need to be better educated in it. But how I perceive it happening is that they go there for a time, and then they move out on their own and maybe get some assistance. But when they're moving out, if you loved the poster on your wall and the book that you were reading in the nightstand in the bed, why couldn't you take that with you, and then I could replace it with more secondhand goods? So I think that there could be that, just like what you're saying, like, they don't necessarily have, like, I would much prefer them to spend their money on food and good nutrition rather than trying to substitute a bed that they had last week and now don't have because they moved out, right? Like, so I would rather see that, and I think most of my clients would like to see that as well. And so,
I think I just think of even people who are housed, but like, you've been in places where people just don't have any stuff, and they're like picking up stuff off the side of the road, or like putting it together. But to know there's maybe an outlet of here's some good used stuff to like make your place feel furnished or feel like a home more, without you, like, if you're struggling to just get by and feed yourself, like, you don't even have you don't have the thrift store money even to like go get something nice from a thrift store.
You're right, it needs to be like a shift in marketing.
In
a lot of ways, though. Like, we don't want to call it thrift, we don't want to call it secondhand or gently used. It needs to be like sustainable furniture. It needs to be eco-friendly lifestyle. It needs a shift to that whole, not trend, but get away from, you're right,
it's really there's a movement called, I think it's called circular economy or circulation economy, which is interesting enough. Donald Miller actually did some talking points from it. I think it's out of University of Chicago, but it's sort of a trend of that, like, recycling things. I think Sweden maybe has some legislation around it where you have to be able to, like, say, kitchen appliances, you have to be able to sell parts that are like available at a price where you're not just, my rice cooker breaks, so I throw it out. Right. You want to be able to like take it to somebody in your town who can actually fix it, or like now you use it, or like somebody else can use it. So it's the same idea of like we have all this stuff that's like circulated around, right? So
there's one in Australia as well that is doing that. They're like doing more of like a rent everything, and which is funny because our neighbor and I share a lawnmower. We have
that's
two
a great.
lawns.
I
We have
share
no
one
fence.
too.
Yeah, like
Beautiful,
why
I
would
have
we
two
both
lawnmowers.
pay for a lawnmower when we are never cutting the grass at the same time? We may cut it in the same day, but never at the same time. And now my 14-year-old kid cuts both lawns, so it's great.
Yeah.
But like I don't like, so for a long time they didn't have a microwave, not because of that they can't afford it. They rarely use it. So on the off chance that the toaster oven wasn't working at the time, they would just use our microwave. And I can't remember what the third set was hair clippers. We have, like, we're very good friends with our neighbors, but we share hair clippers with them because they both get shaved heads, like both husbands. And so both wives do it. So we're like, why would we have two sets of hair? So it is kind of like that thought process, right? But to the secondhand goods, my husband and I, when we started out, we didn't have a lot. Like, we literally knew one another for 6 months, and we're very happily married for 15 years now. But yeah, like, we didn't have a lot, so we took on, my sister-in-law was getting rid of old pots, and I was like, okay, well, we'll use the old pots until they don't work anymore. And they worked until we got married and got new pots. But at the same time, then those pots went to the scrap metal, and of course my dad took off the plastic handles and everything. That's what he's like. But yeah, I do feel like there's that portion as well. Like, there is really, there's so many opportunities for it. It's just figuring out how to.
I think it's everywhere. And I even look at my own house and I have all this stuff. Some of it's old, and like, we recently had some like designers and stuff in, and I was like, we're never actually going to do the plan, because they're like, oh, here's some furniture. And I was like, I just don't want to buy new whatever this is, because almost everything we have is like traded up from something secondhand. And I think we're conditioned to feel bad about that. But then really, I'm like, it's kind of worked out, and I like it. Like, I'm not that attached to certain things. It's also easy to walk away from. And I also have, and we're going to be talking later, like, I have boxes of stuff where it's like, haven't used it, but like, I'm not going to throw it out.
Yeah.
And like, Matt and I joke all the time. There's people who will be on like Facebook Marketplace selling stuff for $2. It's like, I don't even want to talk to people for $2. So it's
getting
like,
out of bed for $2.
and there's also the opportunity cost again of the time to do something with all this stuff. So like, luckily we just have storage space and it's there. But I'm like, if I ever move, it's like the stuff that actually is coming with me that I care about is like very little. And then it's like, what do I do with the rest? So like, I have a note on my calendar to do some spring cleaning, and I might just have you come do that for me. But
everybody has that note. And I think about when we pack to go to our cabin. My husband shares a cabin with 10 other guys, so we rent like a weekend, and we go. And that cabin is some of our happiest memories because we don't take all of our stuff. We literally live with less stuff there. Not that like, we have dishes and stuff, and it's not like living in a tent, but it is very small living. But I don't like. There's also that attachment to, you have to be so big to have made it in the world. And I'm like, I feel like as I age, which I'm only 40, but as I get a little bit older and learn from those older people that I see, I don't want to be like that. Like, so if my kids, so my son is done with Lego, and everyone says, oh, Lego's a good toy, you shouldn't get rid of Lego. And I'm like, but if it's just sitting here, I would so much rather give it like piece by piece to kids that want to play with Lego right now. And it's not about whether their parents can afford it or not. We have a good circular little, there's a girl my son's age that gives to my daughter, and then I give to the girl down the street. And those clothes go through 4 kids before they actually need to be tossed. Like, we don't give stained or ripped, but we give good, and they last. Like, so there's that as well. And I agree, I can't do the like $2 piece. So I have kind of a limit on what I will put on, and the only like clients too are funny. Some of my clients are like, they question, should we put a price on it? And I'm like, we can try. Like, I'll try anything once. So I have put prices, and if somebody isn't, I don't also want anybody to live with regret. So if you didn't want to get rid of that chair for less than $50, we're going to put $50 on it. When it has no movement, or when someone is like, I'll give you $5, I then go back to the client and say, okay, this is what it is. So are you willing to let it go? No, I'm not. Okay, then you were never willing to let it go for less than 50. So it's a learned process for me. And I have gotten very good at it. But then there's the odd time where someone will really want a high priced item, priced high. So we price it, it doesn't necessarily go, but then I can turn around to the client and say, you made $1,500 off of the other goods that you didn't think were going to go at all. And I just knew that there were certain pieces, like that brass dog, that flower painting. I know what my clientele is. Also on the flip side, like on the seller side, I know what my clientele is looking for. So I know that you're going to make $5 and $10 and $15 and $20 and $25 on all of these little things, and that adds up quick. So literally, some clients with what they sell, like that is not the number one part of my job, but it is a small part of my job. And so I don't ever sell clients on, you can pay for me and my services and my team, buy what we can sell for you, because quite often sometimes there's nothing to sell.
Yeah.
But I do try and say, like, we can offset some of the cost with some of the things that I've seen if you're willing. So.
Oh, that's awesome. I love this business idea. I think it's getting people to understand that as well. It's a lot of work.
It is a lot
on your end, but I think it comes from that place of, to me, it's a good community place because it is that keeping things in circulation, not just throwing stuff out. I think it makes it, and the easier you can make it, also competes with like the big stores where it's like bringing in new stuff all the time. It's like now it's a more reasonable option to buy stuff that's
well, and the actual ease and convenience of our business itself. So yes, you could call again those dumpsters in, and you can for sure rent a dumpster from my friend who owns a dumpster company, but you're not, so you're literally going to throw it all in the dumpster and then have to make hard decisions. With our kind of company, I try to be very strategic, like I was explaining earlier, like how we go about doing things and how I explain it to clients and because again, some of my clients are elderly or I have clients that are not even in the province. Last year we had a home where a client flew in. He's not from Ontario. He flew in. He went to the home of a family member who had deceased, unfortunately. And he then said, oh my God, I have no idea. I haven't been here in years. I don't know what to do. Went back to the bed and breakfast. Bed and breakfast is like, well, there's this girl that you should call. And he's like, oh, this is not a girl job. Like, this is horrendous. And so then he did have me come up and I priced it and looked at him. And he's like, for the amount of time that I would have to fly back, take time off work, possibly hire a dumpster, possibly hire this, possibly hire that, you're telling me that you can do this. And I'm like, oh, yes. You for sure can do this. And yes, that was hoarding, definitely. You had multiple things, but once you distribute the items, even from that house, we were able to call in an auctioneer. He paid cash for the goods on site, took them away in his own trailer. My girls and I looked after the dumpster type items. We had a dumpster full in a day, and we were able to locate items such as family photo albums, family birth certificates, family passports that he was desperately looking for and had no idea how to find.
Oh yeah, because you do think, and you're always worried about what are we
actually throwing out,
or like with hoarders. Like I've heard a few stories from when I worked in banking of people going in, and one was an old man who every time he got his pension check, he would cash it, put it in an envelope because he was saving the government money for a rainy day. He was going to use his money first. And would hide the envelope. So he died when he was like 90 with like
all this
30 years worth of pension checks in envelopes, just hidden places. So it's like there's actually money literally hiding everywhere. So if you just came in and threw everything out, like,
you would be at a loss. Yeah,
it would be
that particular job had a wall of books. And one of my girls' job that day was to open up all the books, to be sure. And we literally did find, I think it was $368, a Tim Hortons card, a birth certificate in those. So, but it's just everybody has their certain job of what they're great at and what they know. And so the meticulous one of us is really great at searching like that. There are other portions of the job.
I had a bank account. This is a side story related. Bank account I opened once, and it was somebody came in with her friend, and she was like, when she was had first got married, she would like, if they had a bit of money left over from groceries, she would like hide it in a book for sort of a rainy day. And it was like classic old school, husband was the breadwinner, kind of controlled the money. She sort of snuck a bit away. For decades did this, and then there's I think $18,000 in like her bookcase. And she came in with her friend to have an account, and she's like, he can never know about this because he will think I sort of stole 18,000, whereas really it was always making sure they had a backup that they like never needed. But I was flabbergasted when she actually went through and counted it just in the bookshelf, which is
that's astronomical.
kind of crazy stuff that you find and get into.
For sure.
Which I think is why you need a bit of care.
Yeah.
I think to go through
Yes.
this stuff and to have some people who are professionals and good at that. Because it's one of those things we don't do very often. Like I think about cleaning out someone else's house is something I never want to do again. I don't even want to do it in my own house. The opportunity cost is high.
Yeah.
As you said at the start, like we want to spend our weekends with our families. And like it's on my note because I haven't done it in a long time, but it's like do I book 2 days off of working to like go through my house and get rid of stuff that I then don't have a plan for what to do with it. It's like I just want it to go away.
Yeah, it's time or space, right? Like those are like you're either giving up your time or you're giving up your space. Your stuff takes a lot of time and a lot of space within. And don't get me wrong, like we have stuff too. I have a basement. I live in Canada, so I have a basement. But it's about like, are you going to do anything with that? And there are hard questions to ask. Like when I am working with a client, there are hard questions of, is this aspirational clutter? Is it inspirational? Like what is it that we're dealing with here? Is it emotional clutter that we need to revisit? Like you should never start with your pictures. Like let me just tell you, never start with pictures.
You walk in and like, all right, let's start right here. Let's rip the Band-Aid off.
We're not starting there. We'll start with something that's a little bit less attachment value. And then, like, that's how I work with a one-on-one decluttering client or somebody who just wants to organize is, like, you start with something less attached.
I heard of estate planning, something I read or heard, and it was talking about one of the greatest gifts you can give to your adult children is sort of decluttering sooner rather than later.
Yes.
So to not leave somebody with that. You joke, my father-in-law is sort of like, well, you'll be dealing with it all, but at least it's clear. Right? And it's like, it's a farm, so it's like, well, the scrap truck's going to come at some point, and but that's, we could do sooner, but we just didn't want to do that, which again is a choice, but for others, sometimes it's, how about we do this before so that someone doesn't have to.
And I think that the education value to that of knowing why, because there is a point to where, like, for instance, your father-in-law or my grandparents, like, they just were like, well, I'm just going to let you deal with it. But there is like an education value to, but it's your stuff. So there's guilt, there's love, like they love you, so therefore they feel bad. So do you want to leave them with the guilt factor? Or do you want to kind of work through your own stuff, really, right? Like, I quite often hear clients say, yeah, they'll use that. And then you see like somebody in the background shaking their head going, no, I'm not going to use that. I don't want that. Talk him out of it, right? And it's like, it's a conversation piece, but yeah.
Yeah, I think it's, you're dealing with such a multi-layered business where you become the person that can guide people through those conversations, through managing that, taking the steps they need to. So you did a great job.
It's a fascinating story. Like this is so much more than just the Marie Kondo organization, and that's frankly what I thought that we were talking about today. But then as you were going, like starting to introduce yourself, I'm very cold. So in a way I almost don't relate to this has sentiment. I'll throw everything away.
My favorite thing is like, I'll throw this in the garbage for you. you?
So my mother-in-law is moving, and she's like dealing with all this stuff, and she's like, well, we just have this one curio cabinet with a couple of these things, and like, we just can't bear to get rid of it. Will you take it? And I just like looked at her and was like, do you want me to take it and throw it away for you? And like everyone kind of paused, and like people laughed, and I'm like, no, but like, do you want me to throw it away? Like, I'll do it. She's like, no, I want you to keep it. I'm like, we're gonna throw it away.
Yeah.
Like, I'm cold to it. But
it's the truth though, right?
Yeah.
But if you had somewhere else to take that curio cabinet,
yes,
that may have been like where the silence would have stopped, because the answer then would have been, yes, that's what I want you to do with it.
Yes.
If you're not going to enjoy it, right? And that's what I hear all the time.
Yeah, and I have a pile of stuff in my yard right now that came from the shed, and do I want to, or do I have the time or the desire to like post stuff online for people to take it? Not really. I don't want to sell it. It's all $1 or $2. I'm not going to do that. But to me, when you first introduced it, I was like, why wouldn't someone just get a dumpster, right? But then there's so much more to this story that's so interesting. Like, it's about caring and compassion and cycling this through and sustainability that has been done so wrong and so poorly in our generation of parents, just forcing this on us, and the guilt. And I think I'm cold with this because my mother is the same. Exactly what everyone just described. She's got bins of Happy Meal toys from when we were younger. And like my boys will go down there and they'll play with it, and they're trying to take this home. And she'll look like, wow, like that one's really special. And I'm like it's in a bin from 20 years ago. And I think they think like it's gonna be passed along to me, and I've been explicitly clear. Well, and like my mom's got bins and bins and bins of Mickey Mouse stuff from Christmas. And my dad always used to be concerned that someone was going to ask me one day, what are we celebrating on Christmas? And I was going to say it was the birth of Mickey Mouse. Because like you go into our house, like it's literally Mickey Mouse everywhere. Yeah. And I don't want it. Yeah. I want like one or two things. Yeah, and like to me it's like a piece and an object is like it doesn't really provide memories. Yeah. I mean, like I'm detached from it. So I've been clear, like I'm going to take that. I don't know how. I'm going to take it to a kid's hospital. Let them enjoy it.
Let them enjoy it.
But if I knew of you and your story, and like I can clear out my stuff. I'm good at like this is donatable. Yes. This is garbage. You take it from here. I love that.
Yeah.
Because you know what I'm like too. Like I'm just too lazy to like go through the effort to find someone.
Oh, I'm the same. I have stuff we're going to talk after. It's like good, like stuff. Yeah. I don't have a spot for, but like I'm not going to throw it in a dumpster. Yeah. Or like just those things that you just don't want it to go away. And it's like I have some space now, so it's what it's sitting there. It's okay. But if someone needed it, like it's again really good, high quality stuff. It's like you want them to have it. Yeah. Or the memory stuff. Like you had a great sort of story months ago with your Pez dispensers.
Oh yeah.
You had this massive box of Pez dispensers. I think someone came and took them, but you kept a few.
Right.
That you wanted to keep. So it's like I have 2 that I remember, and the rest can go to someone who might actually want them.
But your memories don't live in the Pez dispenser. They live in your mind, right?
Yeah.
And that's the education factor of trying to tell people like your memories of your grandparents aren't going to change just because you got rid of some of their stuff.
Yeah.
Like your memories are there. It's just that change, right? Like for instance, from that farmhouse, I was not granted the piece that I actually wanted. Yeah. I still don't know where that piece is, but if it's with a cousin, I hope that they're enjoying it. But I was not granted that piece, and it doesn't change my feelings of my grandparents just because I don't have that piece that I wanted to look at all the time. It just, I remember where that piece sat in my grandparents' house. I remember and then it takes you further down the memory hole of, I remember what the countertop looked like, and I remember her making bread. And so like you change depending on what you're seeing, yes, but 2 Pez dispensers as opposed to a box sitting on a shelf somewhere. Right?
Oh, I had like 500.
Yeah.
So I went through, so like the box that I donated was huge, like a banker box overflowing. And I went through and I was like, do my kids know what this character is or not?
Yeah.
So I went, like, kept the Pixar and the Disney and the superheroes,
Yeah.
and then just got rid of the other stuff.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes there's that, you'll hear outlier stories of like, oh, they found this thing and it was worth $1 million.
Yes.
So then they're worried that,
We're so worried.
oh, I gave away a thing that could be worth a lot of money. But like, it's so rare that happens that like you just gotta let it go. Like you probably don't have something that's like an outlier Antiques Roadshow worthy.
Well, and the time and effort to do that is a lot.
You gotta find someone to actually pay you.
Exactly.
It's not, it might be worth nothing if no one's actually going to
So true. So true.
In eBay times when that first came out, it was a new communication tool to connect buyers to sellers of things that maybe you wanted, and you would look at, I know people would go to like every thrift store because they were hunting for this one thing, and now suddenly you could easily buy it. But now we're at the point where you can buy pretty much anything you want, and these things were mass produced in the millions. So it's like if you really want a Kermit or Mickey Mouse Pez dispenser, you can probably go find one anytime you want to like remind you of Christmas at your house.
I can find one in 10 seconds right now on my phone, and it'll be here. So I think, like Dollarama, Amazon's convenience has killed this, and that's what.
And I think too, like there is always, that is why people say to me, should I not keep this? And I'm like, you keep it if you feel like you have a space and a moment and that, but like your time, like and my time to sell those items. So we normally put like a sale time of 2 weeks. And if not, there's been no movement, no offers in 2 weeks, it's not a wanted item. So then it's just, what do you want to do with it?
Yeah.
Like, do you want to donate it? And like the odd time we'll come up against something where someone doesn't, like we had a buyer, not even a seller, say to us, oh, I don't want that item sold to be cut up to make bookshelves. And I'm like, but if that's what the new use is, like I can't control what a new buyer does to something. So there's that too.
It's such a great conversation because there's like so many
different
things like that, and just I think of like stories of people like houses and get attached to it. It's like, well, I don't want this person to get there. But you have to realize as soon as you put something up for sale, like it's not yours anymore, like it's somebody else's. There's all sorts of neat little behavioral mind tricks going on. This has been a great conversation. So what's one thing you would like people to know, and also how do people find you?
Just that we're out here. The worst thing that always happens to us is we get told 2 weeks after somebody's moving, or 2 weeks after they've stressed themselves to the max that, oh, I wish that we had known about you. And so that's what I'm just trying to do. I'm trying to make people aware that we are here, we are around. We are a company that takes care and concern with your things, not just dumping it. And also just, you can find us at on Instagram and Facebook at Kalm Solutions with a K. So KALM Solutions. And KalmlyOrganized.com is our website. And or email me at kim@kalmsolutionsgmail.com.
Awesome. All right, Matt, any final thoughts?
No, this was awesome. This was extremely interesting. I'm not going to try to do a sales pitch for you. However, if you listened to this podcast before and you've heard Brian talk about Story Brand, every business would benefit from Story Brand. Yours would print money if it follows Story Brand. That's sorry.
Well, I think we've already discussed that I'll be working with both of you. So
just like, as you were talking, sorry, at the beginning, I was like, this is like beautifully meant for that Story Brand framework. And like, here's this character, here's their problem, here's how things can go completely sideways. Take someone from feeling awful and overwhelmed to calm and collected. And Story Brand, like, I'm not even trying to sell you to me. I think I want you to look more at the Story Brand stuff, and like, as you're ready to grow and everything, that's the first thing you need to do. Okay. It's going to work really well.
Okay, that's great. Because that's the whole goal is to. My husband works outside of the home, and the whole goal is he is Mr. Khan. He's really good at what he does within our company as well. So when we need the heavy lifting, he's great. And I would love for us to build it so that we have something like that where we can both be at home.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Awesome. All right, now, what's one thing you want people to know about you, and where do they find you?
Not enough people know that your business exists. You want people to be able to find you when they're actively looking for a solution to their problem. I can help you get found on Google in less than 60 days if you reach out to me and book a call at mattygdigital.com.
All right, and I am Brian Rump, and I am the business coach and teacher that helps your business get money with grants, increase sales, and streamlining your business for revenue and profit. Find me at profitcoach.ca. Matt and I collaborate to help you start, grow, or recharge your business, and we want to work with you. If you want to discuss working with us or be a guest on the podcast, be like Kim and send us an email to set it up at kawarthasmallbusinesspodcast.ca. And remember, we believe the Kawarthas can be the most thriving region in Canada for small business.